adding to the dinky little Rev1 and the all singing, all dancing Rev7, Pioneer DJ has now launched the Rev5. And so in this video, I'm going to talk you through the differences between the Rev5 and the Rev7. You should watch this video in conjunction with our review, which you'll see up there, of the Rev5, where I go into more detail about it, plug it in, show you the features and so on. This is purely a comparison of the two if you're thinking which one is now right for me. Because on the surface, these two look like very similar units. They're both the same size, both laid out very, very similarly. And so you might be thinking, okay, tell me, what do I need to know to make a choice? Let's start looking then. So the Rev5 has got CDJ style jog wheels. They are a little bit simpler than on CDJs. The displays in the middle are a little bit simpler, but nonetheless these look and feel like the jog wheels you'll find on Pioneer DJ's CDJ players, which I have to say looks a little bit odd next to the mixer layout, which is a full-on scratch mixer layout. You're just used to using these with turntables, right? However, that is a big thing because on the Rev7 you've got motorized jog wheels. These are revolutionary really because they've got a display in the middle of them, and they also have really nice slip mats and really nice pretend vinyl on top, and they're motorized. So this makes this a big difference between the two. This has got the turntable feel, this has got the CDJ feel. The Rev5 is lighter than the Rev7. It's lower down, it's a lower profile, it's got rounded edges, and it feels a little bit less substantial, even though it's exactly the same size as the Rev7. And it also feels a little bit cheaper than the Rev7. That said, it does feel like a professional build. It just hasn't got that heft that you find on the Rev7, which just, I guess they've had to build it in a more expensive way with a more robust chassis because it's got motors in it and it weighs a considerable amount more. Now, because the Rev5 has got jog wheels, it's got jog feel controls here, which will be familiar to you if you've ever used Pioneer DJ's CDJs, which allow you to have them light or heavy. Whereas on the Rev7, we've got a stop time here. So when you press stop, it slows down immediately or takes a little while. You can still do that on the Rev5, you just need to adjust that in the software. The Rev5 has got a new feature. They always like to bring a new feature you can't get on anything else when they launch new gear, Pioneer DJ. And in the case of the Rev5, it's a curious feature called Auto BPM Transition. Not to be confused with Mix Point Link, another auto transition tool inside the Flex 10. So this one is all about moving different BPMs into each other. And we talk about this more in the full review, which you can go and find on our channel. So this is not here at all, just doesn't exist on the Rev7. That's something that's been added as a new feature for the Rev5. Now the Rev5, it works with 4 decks. It's got 4 deck layers. You can switch these decks here to the other deck, and you can do other things with the decks as well. You can move tracks between decks and so on, which we talk about in the full review. The Rev7 does not. This is purely a 2-deck classic scratch controller. There's no controlling of decks 3 and 4 down on the Rev7. That said, the Rev5 doesn't have phono inputs for record decks, switchable to line for CDJs, so you can't plug extra stuff in here. It's just got the auxiliary, which you also find on the Rev7, but the Rev7 has got 2 external inputs, making the Rev7's mixer a standalone mixer as well. Hence the switches at the top. You don't get that at all on the Rev5. Now, one of the things with the Rev7 when it launched was it had these extra buttons here to give you instant scratch slots and also kind of 4 extra pads. Just gave you more flexibility because you could have things going on here that were separate to how the pads were set. Over on the Rev5, because stems are now the order of the day, that's been replaced with the stems button. You've still got the 4 buttons here. They still control 4 pads that you can switch. You've still got the same functions here that you've got on the Rev7 for switching to a pad mode, so you can use something extra. But The main mode here is stems. You can solo the stems, separate the stems using the buttons here and the buttons here. So it's switched out the scratch for the stems function. Because the REV5 has got static jog wheels, you get your Q button back. On the REV7, there's no Q button here. It's just motorized jog wheels with a start-stop, which is kind of standard stuff, but worth pointing out. The mixer area on the REV5 is a little bit narrower and a little bit simpler. You've got smaller paddles. You've lost some of the controls around here, like the headphones level and mix. They're around the front of this unit now. And you've also got slightly smaller pads. Down on the REV7, pads are a bit bigger. These are a little bit wider. And here's the extra controls that you're missing on the REV5. Also, you get none of the hardware effects at all that you get on the REV7, which makes sense because there's no external inputs for external sources on the REV5. Speaking of the pads, the slicer loop and saved flip functions on the REV7 have been replaced with piano play and stems on the REV5, piano play being a brand new feature. Again, you can see a demo of that over in our main review of the REV5. And the silent cue buttons, which are useful for queuing up and cleanly cutting tracks in when you're using motorized jogs, are not on the REV5 because they're not really useful when you've got the instant start of this kind of jog wheel. The REV5 has got 3 USB-C sockets around the back, 2 of them to replace the USB-B sockets around the back of the REV7. So when you're plugging into a computer, you need a B to an A cable if your computer's got USB-A, whereas with the 5, you need a C to an A cable. Ultimately, it's just a more modern way of doing it. But the third USB-C is the power, and I do like that because they both have a power brick supplied with them. However, it's standard USB-C as opposed to a proprietary adapter on the REV7. If you'd like the choice of using Rekordbox software as well as Serato DJ Pro with pitch and time, which is great by the way, then you need to go for the REV5 because the REV7 is only for Serato DJ Pro. So which one is for you? Well, it's not quite as simple as to say, hey, if you can afford it, go for the REV7. The REV7 is about 2,000, the REV5 is about 1,200, 1,100. That's dollars, euros, roughly. We're recording this a bit before launch and these things do change. It's not as easy as that. Ultimately, I think the big difference here is that the REV5 is for open format DJs who'll be happy using a Pioneer CDJ feel alongside a scratch mixer. Whereas the REV7 is for scratch DJs and turntablists who'd rather have motorized platters to use alongside a scratch mixer. While the REV7 does feel better built and does feel better specified, it's still pretty close. They're both very professional controllers, and ultimately I think that's the big difference. So we got a full review of the REV7 from when it came out. We also have a full review of the REV5, as I said earlier. You'll see the links underneath this in the description. You can also see a full written review of both of these units over on Digital DJ Tips. This has been Phil Morse here at the Digital DJ Tips DJ School, bringing you our look at the REV7 versus the REV5. I hope you found this useful. Ask any questions underneath. My team and I will get to you. Meanwhile, all that's left for me to say is get good, get out there, make the moments, and we'll see you again very soon.